Hello, my name is Daniel Ross, and today on A Load of BS on Sport with myself and Dan Biggar, we welcome none other than 7 times snooker world champion, the king of the Crucible. It's Stephen Hendry.
For me, the enjoyment I get out of snooker is winning. I hated losing with a passion. If you've got that aura or mystique about you, people don't really even, the players don't even know you. You know that people are going to shit themselves against you. You just do it. Loved it. I love being the one that everyone wanted to beat. I absolutely love being the best. There's no better feeling. I took winning for granted. I just took it for granted.
Dan Biggar, firstly, how are you?
Very good, Daniel. Busy week. My 2 kids are testing my patience at the minute, especially the youngest, but I'm surviving. What about yourself? Are your children testing your patience?
Well, I think that's sort of priced in, isn't it? There's nothing abnormal about that. Yeah, a bit, but yeah, they're on pretty good form, enjoying the sunshine. Probably as we speak, running around in the fountains in the park in their swimming costumes, in a bit of having a bit of fun post school with their snacks and all that. So it's great to see. They absolutely love it. I was feeling a bit ropey. I had a really cool dinner last night, actually, in town, organised by a really interesting marketing AI business. I give them a shout out since they paid for everyone, called Alembic Technologies. They're over from San Francisco, hosting a group of interesting people. And I was sitting next to a guy. It was really interesting. He was a director and board member at Leeds United, worked really closely. If you remember the name Andrea Radrizzani, who used to own Leeds, and he was telling me the inside track on Leeds United's sale to the San Francisco 49ers. So it was one of those slightly random dinners where you sit next to someone interesting and learn a good story. So that was pretty cool.
It does sound a slightly random one, but I thought you were going to go down that. I thought you were saying that the kids were playing in the fountains in the back garden. So I was thinking I'm in the wrong game here.
Yeah, exactly. At Chateau Ross, in the fountain garden wing. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, let's turn to our guest today. What I think for me is most interesting about Stephen Hendry is that he wasn't just a snooker champion many times over. He was this kind of cold-blooded phenomenon. And you were talking about this a little early. He completely, I think, redefined snooker with this mindset. He didn't only want to win, he wanted to dominate, and he rose to the top when he was a teenager. He was there for pretty well a decade. And I think he was known for as much for his emotional control as his sort of amazing break building. But, and this is what I think you were talking to me about earlier, beneath all of that was a far more complex competitor driven by fear of failure. He was kind of addicted to winning and ultimately forced to confront a life beyond the game, which, as you know, we all are, beyond the kind of the perfection that he'd once demanded of himself. So I think it's going to be fascinating to sort of explore some of those themes in particular today.
Yeah, I think you were on the right path at the start, and when you said cold-blooded, and that's kind of how I thought of him. I thought of him as almost like a cold-blooded killer. You know, there was no mercy. He was just relentless in his pursuit of winning greatness, and yeah, I mean it's exceptional to have 7 times world champion on our show, isn't it? So, should we get him on?
Let's do it. Welcome to you, Stephen Hendry, and excusing my terrible attempt at opening humour. How are you queuing? How are you doing today? And you can answer both questions.
The queuing is probably not so good. I don't play a lot of snooker these days. The only snooker I play is the odd exhibition or on my YouTube channel if I'm playing guests on there. So yeah, queuing not so good, but yeah, I'm doing okay.
I was just about to say, Stephen, I've got to be honest. I mean, I'd imagine you've got a lot of compliments over it, but that is like my search history on YouTube at the minute, especially given that we were chatting to you today. But it is brilliant, and obviously I know Mark Williams quite well, and he came on as well. How have you found that side of things?
It's been really cool, actually. I started off on Instagram doing sort of asking sort of followers to send in their shots that they wanted me to teach them shots or shot recreations. So we were doing that on Instagram, which was going really well. So we thought the next step up. I know, and obviously you can monetize it. Obviously in YouTube, there's obviously that it's a business as well. But yeah, so it was the next step up, and we've got when it was on Instagram, it was basically just my agent filming on a mobile phone. But obviously YouTube, again, it's a level up. You're using proper cameras, proper editing. The company Social Bull that we use are very professional, and they obviously do a great job with the videos. As I say, editing and making them look really good. Try and make me look as good as possible, which is obviously not easy. But no, it's been going for just over almost 2.5 years. It's going really well. Really happy.
Funnily enough, without going too much down the rabbit hole of your YouTube channel, one of the most delightful things about it is sort of seeing how bang average you seem to have become, dare I say. You seem to miss half the balls, but you sort of almost delight in it. It's this kind of funny, like dropping of the mask for you almost, that you kind of knocking around and it's just kind of obviously having fun, and it's not too serious. But I think some sportsmen reveal their full personality sort of on the pitch as well as off it during playing and in retirement. And if I think of snooker, I take someone like Ronnie O'Sullivan. He seems to me to wear his heart on his sleeve. I have a pretty decent sense of the guy without really knowing him at all. But on the table, Dan and I were just talking about this before. You came across as this ice cold destroyer. You were clinical and ruthless, certainly destroying the dreams of Jimmy White a few times. But watching you on TV now, and you're on YouTube and so on, you're quite a funny, chilled out kind of guy. So I was wondering whether was your playing and professional persona natural, or was it was it a deliberate creation?
It was. I would say it's about 80% natural and 20%. Steve Davis was obviously a hero of mine growing up, and he was much of the same, cut from the same cloth in terms of. We joke when we do exhibitions together that I took his miserableness and sort of took up to a new level. Of being that cold, no personality. Just basically when I played professional, I was there to do a job. I was there to win, and if I won, it's where I didn't really show much emotion, even when I was lifting the trophy, because to me that was my job, to go there and win it. There was no real elation because don't get me wrong, I loved winning and it was amazing, and afterwards the tournaments you would enjoy it, but there it was when I was doing it, it was a fact of that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to go there and win. And then when I won it, what's the next one I go and win? So it was quite a cold sort of business-like attitude towards it, but that was just the way it was. But yeah, go back to now. Yeah, the reason, as I say, I don't play anymore, and that's why, as your words, I'm bang average.
Well, I should.
So yeah, it's.
I'm trying calling you bang average. I don't know what that means. But can't think of an adjective.
But a lot of the times I'm playing, I'm actually thinking of sort of questions that I'm going to ask and things like that. So I'm there just to. It's very, very casual, and if you watch the one with Ronnie and I, none of us could pot a ball. Even Ronnie was like, it was there was so many comments. So what are we watching here? Nobody could pot 3 balls in a row, because basically it's not what it's about to show great snooker. It's just to try and get the guys to sort of relax and maybe talk about things they wouldn't normally talk about, and just 2 guys having a chat around a snooker table, really.
Yeah. So just to follow up on what we were talking about, were you very consistent in your behaviour with your playing peers, whether competing or not, to sort of build and maintain the aura? It wasn't as if you came off the table and then you were all having beers together. My sense was that you maintained this persona consistently until you retired.
I didn't ignore people, and I wasn't rude, so I didn't go to that extent. But no, I wouldn't socialize and go out to get Again, it was sort of my manager and I sort of copied a sort of Steve Davis, Barry Hearn, where Barry kept Steve away from everyone, because I think especially in an individual sport, if you've got that aura or mystique about you, people don't really the players don't even know you, then it puts them a little bit on the back foot when they're actually playing against you as well. So it was a bit of a conscious decision to do it, but when I was young, I wasn't really that outgoing anyway. So I was quite shy. So I wouldn't really be it. And also when I was sort of 18, 19, 20, sort of starting to win tournaments and stuff, a lot of the guys were like twice my age. So you didn't really have a lot in common anyway. So it was quite easy to sort of keep myself to myself. And towards the end of my career, sort of relaxed a little bit, and maybe I don't know whether I was subconsciously trying to do things that I'd missed out on, sacrifice, like going out for dinners, going out for drinks with guys, and yeah, Dan, your mate Williams, I blame him from the downfall of my career, because I became Mark was my best friend on tour, still is, and so I sort of got involved in him, and I think he relaxed me a lot.
Well, I was just about to say you couldn't probably get two polar opposites in terms of marking. Probably you, certainly in your pomp, Stephen, I'd imagine.
Yeah, certainly our approach to the game. I mean, Mark has got it's completely unique. I think he's got the best temperament of any sportsman of any sport I've ever seen. I mean, the way he just doesn't give a monkeys whether he wins or loses, and I never used to believe it. I used to say, no, you are trying, you want to, you are gutted. He said, I'm not, and I've seen it. I've seen him walk out. Now that I'm a pundit, you see people in studios afterwards. You see them, and he genuinely forgets about it 2 seconds after he walks off the table. It's incredible, and the way he shrugs off bad shots, could butcher a shot 1 minute, go back to his seat, sort of laugh about it. You'll see he's upset about it, but he'll forget about it, and then come back to the table and clear the table or whatever. He's incredible, but we've actually got a very similar sense of humor off the table. That's probably why we get on so well.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take you back towards the start, where what got you into snooker, essentially? How did you get into snooker?
2 weeks before my 13th birthday, I got a little table, 6 foot by 3 foot, for a Christmas present from my parents. I never watched it before, I never played it before. My mum was kind of struggling what to get me for Christmas. We'd seen this sort of small table in a shop window, and she said, "What do you think about that?" I says, "Yeah, fine." Yeah, and I wasn't, I'd had the bikes and I had the football kits and all that sort of Sabutio and all that sort of stuff, and it was different. I thought, yeah, fair enough, and fell in love with the game straight away. My dad, he played snooker. He wasn't any good. He could pop maybe 2 balls in a row. That was his maximum. But he would go weekly with his mates. My grandfather, who died before I was born, was a very good player. So it obviously kind of skipped a generation. And because within 3-4 weeks in the small table, I was making 40, 50 breaks.
Well, that was going to be my next question, really. How quickly did you realize that this was something that you weren't just okay at? This was something that could really become a career and take you to the professional standard.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I was beating my mates, my dad, family members, things like that. People that I knew, they were coming. I would beat them all the time. But then obviously you don't really know until I went. About 4 months later, I went and played full size table. Just got better. I mean, I just every spare minute I played snooker, I just loved it, and I just got better and better and better. And it'll, sort of basically less than a year after I started, I was started winning junior tournaments. Kids my age, I was beating. Then beating the odd sort of senior player, amateur as well. So yeah, escalated very quickly. But yeah, clearly I was born with a talent to play snooker.
And at that stage, Stephen, who would have been like someone that you really looked up to and idolized and wanted to mold your game on and be as good as?
My first hero was Jimmy White. He came to do an exhibition in Dunfermline, which was near where I lived in Fife in Scotland, and my dad took me to see him, and it was just the way he played, his cue action, his flair, the speed he played, it was his cue action that attracted me the most. Just the way he hit the ball was just completely natural. So yeah, he'd be my sort of first hero in the game, and I used to video. Showing my age now, I used to video and my video record VHS all the tournaments that he was playing, and it was the way I learned really in the beginning. I used to say video all the top players and try and copy the shots on my small table, which isn't easy because if you've ever played a 6 foot by 3 foot, the cloth is terrible, the balls are tiny, you can't really play screw shots properly and things like that. But I did used to try and copy all the shots that they were playing on TV.
I want to ask you about Jimmy since you brought it up. It's often only after greats retire from the game that you sort of get to know them and warm to them. I remember, of course, we were all supporting the underdog in those great finals that you played and always felt desperately sorry for him. But it can happen that you can just continually lose. But for such a talented player, from a sort of mental, psychological point of view, personality, why do you think he lost 6 finals? Why do you think for a player of his ability, he never won? I mean, it might just be coincidence, but what's behind it, do you think?
Look, there's definitely something lacking. There's definitely something missing. If you've been in 6 finals and not converted once, there's something that's not there that should be there. And he had the probably best chance against me, deciding frame, twitched a black off a spot, and that's just pressure. That's just not being able to sort of find your best game when it matters the most. 14-8 up against he was up against me as well. And I knew coming back, I could see him weakening and weakening. And that's, it's there's obviously he's not got something that we had. Talent and everything alone doesn't win you. And in fact, I would say in sports like snooker, individual sort of real psychological sports, talent is almost the least important thing. When it comes to the end, winning world championships and things like that, you've got to have, as you'll know yourself, Dan, obviously top sport, you need a big pair of bollocks. You need to be able to play your best when the biggest pressure is on.
I was just about to ask.
I don't know whether you can say that in your podcast or not.
Yeah,
sorry.
You can. We're all for it, and that's the scientific term we were looking for, if we're honest. So, I was going to ask you that because, like, for me, it's a bit like that in any sport. It's golf, cricket, anything really, tennis. Yes, there's talent in the top players, but there's something else, isn't there? Like it almost, when those pressure moments come on, I compare it to someone like a Novak Djokovic, for argument's sake. He almost prefers playing at break point or championship point down. That's when his best tennis comes out. And did you find, from your point of view, that your best snooker came out when it really needed to? And was there anything like you were thinking in your head in those big moments compared to when you're just clearing and making century breaks?
No, not at all. I mean, when I look back now to like world finals and stuff, I'd be in my dressing room so thinking I was going to be sick, like so feeling nauseous. I was never actually physically sick, but I felt that way. And looking back at now, that's when I played my best snooker, because I knew it was this was the moment. And when I got to the table, obviously everything disappeared, and I just played my best. But yeah, it's to say, it's what separates the best from the rest. You can't teach it. I think you either have it or you don't, and it's why you in again, like individual sports, and I suppose team sports, there's a bit in it as well. It's why you get the same people winning over and over and over. When you get repeat winners, it's because they're the ones that can play their best, as if it means nothing, but when it means everything.
Like for me, like you said it, Stephen, in individual sports, you are on your own, aren't you? In my sport, in football, in cricket, you've got people to sort of bail you out. But I feel like in an individual sport, there's nowhere else to really look, and it's almost like you're on your own. How much of a support network did you have in those early years? And was there anybody, I know you worked incredibly closely with Ian Doyle, didn't you, in terms of at the start? How much of an influence was he? And how much did that help you being in an individual sport with nobody else to rely on?
Ian Doyle was probably the biggest influence on my career, without a doubt, because he took me to sort of under his wing when I was just about to turn pro, sort of 15, 16, and I was just, snooker was a hobby, really. I was just mucking around. I mean, I'd won Scottish amateur senior titles and stuff like that, but I was going to the club and mucking about with my mates, having a laugh, playing snooker for a couple of hours, just going for everything, then maybe stopping and maybe playing cards for an hour or doing it wasn't serious. And it was he took me on. He said, if you're going to turn pro, and if I'm going to take care of everything financially, you're going to work your bollocks off. It's going to become a career. It's going to become a job. So he moved me from the club I was playing into his snooker club, and I started to play 6 hours a day on my own every day, 7 days a week. And I hated it. All of a sudden, I hated snooker. And that's when it became like a job. It became like, this is not a hobby anymore. It's not like I'm playing because I want to. It's playing because I have to. But after about a month or so, my game, I could feel it transforming. So that was kind of the first sort of step of his influence, and sort of the dedication and putting everything into the sport that I could. But yeah, in terms of when I started playing tournaments and stuff, I mean, he was huge. I mean, he used to come into my dressing room, give me hairdryer, bollockins, if I wasn't playing well in intervals, but I responded to it. And obviously, Dan, as a team sport, different players respond to different ways. Whether it's an arm around a shoulder or a bollockin, different people respond different ways. I responded to sort of, him abusing me, basically, and it made me sort of determined to prove him wrong, and made me so angry. But I went out and played amazing. So there's that side of it. Obviously, the financial everything, because in a sportsman, all you want to do is play your sport. You don't want to think about anything else. So it's obviously very important as well to have people to take everything that away from you, so you can just concentrate on one thing. And obviously my parents as well. I came from a good background. My dad looked after when I was an amateur, and my mum and everything. So I'd very sort of living in Scotland in a very down to earth background. So I was never allowed to get too big for my boots as well, which is really really important, because I've seen so many players in snooker. I know that's about that. They win one or two things, and all of a sudden it goes to their head, and then you don't hear from them again. So it's very important when you have success is to say, right, okay, you won that, amazing, but that's not the end of it. I mean, we want to dominate, and if you want to be world number one or world champion, you've got to. If you win the tournament on Sunday night, you're back in the practice table on Tuesday, ready for the next one. Sometimes the Monday.
I love it how you said you came from, a very sort of working class background and sort of very down to earth background, and now you're living on Sunningdale Golf Course. So it's
not quite in the course. No, it
it
sounds more glamorous than it is. Believe me. I'm in an apartment. It's not. Yeah.
I was
paint a nice picture, but it's not.
Yeah, we'll make sure we big it up for you. I wanted just to ask, one time you mentioned about the hairdryer treatment, and I think I was someone, and still am someone, who responds better in that sense. Was there one sort of time where, I think you were in awe of Jimmy, and sort of Ian came in and sort of gave you a bit of the hairdryer not because of losing, but because of just how in awe you were of Jimmy around the table and how it affected you?
It was actually both Ian and my father, actually, because I'd won the Scottish Professional Championship at 16, turned professional, and every year they had this tournament in Scotland where it was the best 7 players in the world and the one token Scot who was a Scottish champion, and it was on BBC Scotland, and it was quite a big affair, actually. So I was drawn against Jimmy, and obviously he was my hero, and he beat me 5-0 in about an hour, and I basically sat in my chair and just like I can't believe I'm playing Jimmy White in this arena and in this tournament on TV, everything. And when I came off, both Ian and my dad says, well, if that's going to be your attitude when you play these guys, I said, you may as well chuck it now. I said, because you got to, think yourself as an equal, or you're going to just go downhill like every other. To be honest, like every other Scottish professional, because before me there wasn't really any history of a Scottish professional doing anything against the top players. They were good in their own arena. But as soon as they were put on TV against the top, they just collapsed. And they basically said to me, do you want to be like them? Are you just going to go on the same road as them? You're just, happy to play in Scotland, but you don't want to compete with the best. So yeah, it was a rude awakening.
The comment that I wanted to pick up on that you said a few minutes ago was when you were in those early days doing all that relentless training, was that you hated it. And I was waiting for you to say, but then I started to love it. But it almost reminded me of the sort of the Andre Agassi, his autobiography, where he essentially sort of says how much he hated the game.
I've read it,
It's like his amazing success. I mean, obviously you had a different background. I don't think you were sort of driven like crazy by others around you. But did you grow to love the game and enjoy it? Well, you sort of touched on the fact that winning felt like business. But how did you react? How did you sort of feel emotionally throughout your career, I guess?
Yeah, as I say, for the first month or two, I did hate it because snooker stopped being a hobby. As I say, I sort of had to play it rather than wanted to play it. But as I say, I seen the improvement in my game, and then I started to get wins, and I won the Scottish Professional Championship, and then so for me, like it's why I retired. Maybe I retired too early. Who knows? But when my game was shot anyway, that's a different story. But for me, the enjoyment I get of snooker is winning. It's not taking part. So when I started to realize that this practice was making me win, then I started to enjoy it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to keep practicing because it was giving me the game to succeed.
Let me pick up on, you talk about your game was shot. I mean, when did you retire? Sort of 10 years ago? Is that about when? Or how many years ago did you start?
2012.
Okay, so more than that. But then you made a short as well comeback. But regardless of that, it seems to be unlikely that it was your body gave up on you. Sometimes, great things just come to an end and you can't be as relentlessly brilliant forever. And that's just the natural way of things. It goes in cycles. But Was it something more kind of psychological? Did you lose the drive? Why did it disappear all of a sudden?
I basically developed a yips in my cue action. Basically, I played around about the turn of about 2000, 2001. I played a couple of shots and they just felt terrible. In terms of basically in the cue arm when you go through, my arm just my grip hand stopped and I just couldn't go through the cue ball. And I thought, well, that's a bit weird. I didn't feel good. And then it happened about 2 or 3 months later, and again, similar shot. And I thought, well, I don't like this. And then it started to sort of infect into other parts of my game, other shots, to the point where, at 2012 when I say my game was shot, I was refusing, not playing the right shot because I would avoid a shot that I knew I couldn't play. So my whole game was just gone, basically. I made a 147 in my last appearance at the Crucible 2012, but out of the 36 shots, I think I hit about 5 or 6 correct. The rest were just sheer pints of blood, just got through it somehow. So yeah, but then when I realized I couldn't compete, then I just wanted to get out because I just couldn't. It was embarrassing playing people who are ranked 80 below you who can play shots that you're no longer able to play, and not even difficult shots. Just and it becomes mental. It becomes a mental thing as well. Obviously, it starts physical, but it becomes mental. And I just never ever got rid of it. So yeah.
Because golfers have the yips as well with putting. It's very common. Maybe I don't know whether you may have had that as well, and sometimes I suppose it's so debilitating you can't come back. But often it's something that you work.
It's just a lack of talent with golf.
Well, like
yips haven't creeped in. It's just a lack of talent.
Okay, yeah, but often golfers. Again, a mainly solitary sport. We all watched Augusta with the influence of Bob Rotella on Rory McIlroy, but I wonder whether you'd worked with other people to try and resolve the yips, or whether it became so debilitating that in the end it beat you clearly.
I tried a couple of different coaches who tried to alter my cue action to try and counteract it, but in the end, no, nothing worked. Nothing worked. So yeah, that was pretty much it. And to this day, I still suffered with it. I was in China with Steve 2 or 3 months ago, and I was like yipping so many easy shots, and then he actually gave me quite a nice tip, which helped it a lot actually. Didn't solve it, not cure it, but it helped me play some shots. So because all now I just want to enjoy playing. You mentioned that the sort of comeback element. It was never a comeback. It was just a comeback is someone coming back seriously and practicing and trying to win things or trying to come back and having some success. I was always just coming back to playing 2 or 3 events, maybe qualify to play an arena again. There was a small dream about maybe playing at the Crucible again, but I realized when I wasn't practicing and I still had this problem, there was no way that was happening. So I got out of there again quickly.
Stephen, how did you, that sort of 10-year period that you had was just, utter dominance, wasn't it? In terms of 5 in a row, 8 years as number one, countless titles. How did you feel like before the tournaments were happening that you were going to win? And how did you stay at the top? Because I read somewhere I read somewhere that you said that you effectively you were greedy.
Yeah, I think as a sportsman, and again, I go on about individual sportsmen because it's my arena. But I think to be a constant winner, you've got to just be greedy for success. You got to be greedy for winning. You got to hate the very thought of anyone else winning a tournament. It's all about you winning all the time, and that's what I had. I hated losing with a passion. If I lost in a tournament, I wouldn't watch it on the TV for that week. I'd do anything to avoid being anywhere because I just hated the fact someone else was going to win. So yeah, that was my thing, and yeah, in the 90s, it was I took winning for granted. I just took it for granted. The famous story when I was going down to the World Championship, I can't remember which one it was, but saying to my then wife, bring that jacket with you to the final because I'll wear that after the party. This was before the tournament even started. And I did win it, and she brought the jacket and I wore it. It's like that was I just took for granted winning. and it's the sort of what's the highs and lows of sport. You take for granted winning, and all of a sudden it switches, and you take for granted losing. It's a fine line.
I wanted to ask because I feel like, again, when I watch a lot of, I'm a huge sports fan, and almost you feel sometimes when you go on the court against perhaps Novak Djokovic, or when you play Tiger in his pomp in golf, almost people feel like they're beaten before they've even started the match or the round. Did you get a sense that people feared that about you and felt that when you came to the table and people you played?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, it's worth. I couldn't quantify it to points of a start, but it's certainly worth a lot. I played Terry Griffiths, the late great Terry Griffiths, one through in Thailand once, and he brought his suitcase to the tournament office. I mean, he could. I mean, I think I was 16-0 with Terry. He was just one player that couldn't beat me, but bless him. And yeah, he'd brought his suitcase to the tournament office, ready to go straight to the airport. But yeah, you could sense it. You could sense players are, and it's one of the things we talk about obviously every year at the Crucible, because they on about the first rounds are so difficult. The standard of play down the rankings is gone up so much. I think what the top players are doing is not too dissimilar as what I was doing, but down the rankings it's incredible. So, because usually when I was in the 90s, the first couple of rounds, you know that people were going to shit themselves against you. You just do it. So you took it for granted. But now it's different. All the top, you see so many seeds go out in the first round because the standard is incredible down the rankings.
Did you enjoy being number one, Stephen? And did you enjoy that people feared you and you enjoyed that aura that you had? Not that anybody wouldn't, but did you enjoy? Because a lot of people prefer to be the underdog, don't they? And they prefer to not be at the top of the tree and to be a target all the time.
Loved it. I love being the one that everyone wanted to beat. I absolutely love being the best. There's no better feeling.
Was there any extra pressure on you in that sense, or did you put any extra pressure on yourself, or was it just you were so confident in your ability in that period?
Yeah, I mean, there was huge expectation from a manager, from within me. I mean, a huge expectation, but I was so confident that it didn't affect me. It didn't affect me in a negative way. I just expected to win, and as I say, enjoyed being the best player. I loved being announced as number one. I loved before a world championship, you go in the press and everything, all the media saying who's going to win it. Well, Hendry's going to win it. I mean, I loved all that. I mean, you can't not. Then obviously you get near the end of the career and say, well, who's went? Well, Hendry's not. He's gone. So you go from one side to the other. But no, I mean, you look at Luca Bracella, who won the world championship 2 years ago, and basically now is ranked 50 or 60 in the world. I don't think he enjoyed being world champion and having a target on his head. Kyron Wilson last year actually was incredible. He won 4 tournaments. He looked like he enjoyed it. So not everybody does. As you say, there's lots of players that love having less pressure on themselves, being the underdog. I hate these interviews. Some player when you say, "Oh, I'm not playing well. That's the other guy's the favorite. I'm just, I thought, oh, please." I used to say, "Look, I'm the favorite. I want to win. I want to win. I'm the favorite. I'll win the world championship."
Yeah, it's all part of the games, all part of the game playing before the game. I mean, boxers don't go in saying, "I've got a fighting chance, but I'm not really feeling it."
You can imagine. I know.
It would be obviously ridiculous. I mean, let's go to sort of flip it a bit to when your dominance then ended. What was hardest to let go of? Was it the status, the routine, sort of the identity of Stephen Hendry, the champion?
Yeah, I mean, just not being world champion anymore, not being world number one, sort of slowly going down the rankings was horrible. Because as you say, like 8 years world number one, winning 7 world titles in the 90s to all of a sudden not being talked about as the best player. I didn't like it.
So then how did you rebuild your sense of self after stepping away from the top?
I mean, I dropped out from number one. I think I can't remember what year was it. Obviously, end of the 90s or whatever. And then I managed to get back to number one. So actually, I was working with Terry Griffiths. He was my coach at the time. We got back to number one, I can't remember the year, sort of mid 2000s, something like that. But I stopped. I mean, I was still winning quite regularly, but not to the volume of what it was in the 90s, winning sort of 4, 5, 6 titles a year. It was now maybe 2 titles a year, which for a lot of players would be incredible seasons. But for me, because I'd set myself such high standards, it was a drop. And I think, practice is sort of dedicated, the work side of my game started to drop down a little bit. Snooker's a very difficult sport to keep because the table stays the same. So you're basically doing the same practice stuff you're doing since you started. It's not as if, you can change anything on a snooker table. The balls are still, you can maybe do a different routine a different day, but at the end of the day, it's still stuff you've been doing day in, day out for year after year. So that's one of the people say, why do you drop down? Why does your form slip? It's basically because you're not able to put the work in, the quality work in that you used to put in, because it gets boring, to be frank.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about your comeback that you made. What was that? What was that about? Was it unfinished business? You loved the game, or was it something a bit more personal?
So basically, I thought about it, and I had a game of golf with Barry Hearn. It was actually Mark Williams, me, Barry Hearn, and Steve Davis at Barry Hearn's club, and he's the biggest cheat ever. But they cheated, him and Steve cheated me and Mark out of a win that day. Anyway, I had a putt about a foot long, went like that with my club to flick it. It didn't go in, and Barry Hearn says, I didn't give you that." So anyway, like me, he says, "My club, my rules." Typical Barry. Anyway, during it, he said to me, "What? You've never wanted a wild card. Jimmy's got one. Ken's got one." I says, "Well, I would have one, but I don't want to play in everything. It's not. I don't want to come back and be full time. I just want to be if I want fancy playing in that, I'll play in it." He says, "Well, have it." He says, "As long as you play in one tournament a season," he said, "you can have it for." Again, in his words, as long as you've got a hole in your arse. So I said, "Okay, I'll take one." Just in the fact that, if I fancy playing a tournament, I'll play in it. Not that, as I say, it wasn't a comeback at all. So that was it really. But the main thing was to try and qualify for the Crucible. But yeah, I was deluded in my thinking there.
How different is the Crucible to any other tournament in terms of the pressure that is on you, in terms of the atmosphere, in terms of the prestige that goes with it? How difficult is it walking, or how different is it walking out there compared to other tournaments?
It's completely different. It's why it's the biggest test, the World Championship, because it is, it's so small. Obviously, when it's 2 tables, it's even smaller. It's so claustrophobic. You're playing long frame matches. It's kind of like the sort of purest, toughest form of snooker, because there's no sort of, like the Ali Pali, the Masters is probably the biggest prestigious event now in snooker in terms of, there's almost 2,500 people there. They've got the VIP seats. You can have this. You can go up and have a champagne dinner and everything. Everything around it is very prestigious. Whereas the World Championship is all about snooker. It's just snooker, and yeah, it's completely different. And it's why a lot of players, top players like Trump, Robertson, who else? Players like this have only won it once. Players who like some of the best players that's ever been in the game, they've won it once, because it is the toughest test.
Speaking about the Crucible and World Championships, an honest answer, because I always say, sometimes when records are broken or matched or equal, a lot of people say, "I'm really pleased that he or she has broken that record or tied the record, etc." Is that something you feel with Ronnie O'Sullivan equaling your record, or is it something that you're really not happy about and you want it to be yourself?
I don't want him to beat it. Of course I don't. Why would I? Listen, it was my biggest fear this year that you got to the semi-finals and the 3 rounds he played rubbish, and the 3 players he played collapsed against him. And I thought, I hope he doesn't do it by 5 players collapsing against him rather than him playing well. If he plays blitzes, everyone plays well, then congratulations, fair enough, he's done it. Won't be happy about it, but say, yeah, you deserved it. So, yeah, that was was my thinking this year. But no, I don't want him to win. I mean, of course I don't. But I said to him when he was on the YouTube channel, because when I won 6 to equal Steve, basically the next day I thought, well, that's no good. I've got to win 7. And I asked him this. I said, surely now that you've won 7, surely now you think you must win 8. And typical Ronnie, he didn't admit. He said, no. I'm just like, he does. I think he does.
How much of a complex character is Ronnie in terms of? I mean, he obviously walked off against yourself, didn't he? With the 147, where he sort of needed something to get himself going a little bit. How different are the two of you as characters? But sort of how complex is he as a person and a snooker player on tour?
I think we couldn't be more different. I think in terms of our sort of personalities on the table and probably off the table actually. I mean, I like Ronnie a lot. We've had our times where we don't speak, and we've had our times where we do speak. It's as you say, he is a complex character, but he's an absolute genius of a snooker player. I love watching him play. Obviously now as a commentator pundit, there's 2 or 3, but he's certainly up there as one of my favourite people to watch playing snooker. It's when he's not playing the tournament's poorer because of it.
What are some of the moments that you still replay in your mind, good or bad? Are there things that you can't quite get rid of for good or bad?
Well, the last time I played my best at the Crucible was the semi-final against Ronnie in 2002. And he'd gone because so the morning of the semi-final, the morning starting, my guy used to drive me around, came to my room and said, "Have you seen what Ronnie said?" And I went, "Why? What are you on about?" So he showed me all the papers. So basically, Ronnie had basically gone through me saying, "I don't like Stephen. I never have. I only speak to him because I think I'm supposed to. I want to send him back to Scotland to his sad little life." And all this, and I went, "Oh, that's interesting." It's because like, so fair enough. I says like, if he doesn't like me, I won't speak to him either. That's fair enough. Fair enough with me. I wasn't bothered about the stuff that he said he didn't like. I didn't care about it. It was just the fact that it sort of came out of the blue really, which took me by surprise. But anyway, it's probably the only grudge match I've ever played in my career, and I beat him, and it was like, it was a weird atmosphere in the Crucible because obviously he had a huge amount of support, but like Jimmy, I mean, he's obviously a fan's favorite, but yeah, I remember that as like, as I say, I remember it because I know it's the last time I played my best at the Crucible. I lost in the final to Peter Ebden, and yeah, it took a few months for us to pick up to get back on speaking terms. But basically, I think he'd be talking to Nassim Hamed and all those people, and I think they told him to stoke it up like a boxing match rather than it being a snooker match.
Yeah, didn't serve him brilliantly. But so I mean, on that note, I mean that was sort of pre-game banter. Talk about mind games within the heat of battle. I mean, you talked anyway about you had at the peak of your career anyway created an intimidating aura. But what are the sort of mind games that go on in match play?
Not a lot really in snooker. It's still quite it's still a gentleman's sport basically. That's the best way I can put it. There's no you never get sledging. There's nothing like that going on. There's never any sort of there's never any way of sort of trying to put someone off or trying to use gamesmanship. It's just it just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist really. You do your playing on the table. I mean, you might get the odd sort of half sort of joking comment, but I mean even that it's nothing that's sort of sinister in a way to like try and derail you or anything.
Maybe it's body language.
I mean, I think the most.
Maybe it's the way you come on and hold yourself. Maybe it's.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's that in it. I mean, one of the reasons I was sort of told, I mean, when I first started playing as a junior, my dad used to say, never ever let your opponent see what you're feeling. And my dad never ever criticized me once when I was playing. The only thing he ever did once, I was playing in a junior tournament and I was playing bad. I was losing and I head down. And he stood beside me because there was no people watching. He just under his breath said to me, "Get your head up." So I put my head up. I said, because obviously if your opponent sees that, then it's you know, I could always read Jimmy in the finals. I could always tell when he's under pressure because he would start like, you know, this with the head. He would start to, you know, he would start to sweat a little bit more. He would start to play a bit quicker. He would hit the ball a bit harder, and then I would know that he was feeling it.
Do you know the one thing I was thinking of when you were answering that question, Stephen, and when Daniel asked it was when Ebden made, was it a 12 break in 5 minutes against, it was against Ronnie, I think, wasn't it? And I'm just sort of thinking then, is that, as you know, did he deliberately play a bit slower, take time in between shots, etc., to put, you know, because everybody knows, snooker fan or not, that Ronnie wants to get at the table, pot ball as quickly as possible, get the frame done and dusted. So would that be maybe a real example of tactics against an opponent? Because you said the table doesn't change, the balls don't change.
Yeah.
But is that something that you can do to maybe put somebody off?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did. I mean, he was asked about it after, and he broke down in tears because you know, the guy asked him the question about it, and after he beat Ronnie. But yeah, I think that was definitely a bit of gamesmanship on Peter's part. Yeah, there's players would you know, I mean, Selby's a genius at it. I mean, if his opponent's flying, all of a sudden turning the game into, and it's not gamesmanship. It's just the fact he's so skillful at doing that he can just turn the game into like a real scrappy game. You know, I wouldn't like to play Selby now. I mean, I played him obviously I played him quite a lot actually. He was still, obviously I was still playing when he was playing. And probably near the end he probably beat me more than I beat him, but he's a sort of player that I wouldn't like to play because, you know, I'd get impatient. You start going for something that you shouldn't to try and break the sort of mold of the game. But he can ruin a game, and you know, and that sounds probably a bit harsh, but that's the way we look at it. You know, someone's flying, potting the balls, and he can just spoil it, and that's an amazing skill in itself.
Absolutely. Well, look, before we fire away with a quick fire round, how do you define, or what's the meaning of success to Stephen Hendry today and sort of moving forward?
Yeah, so what, in terms of my career?
Just in terms of, it could be day to day, week to week, given what you've achieved and what status you've achieved. What does success look like day to day, week to week for Stephen Hendry now?
Success to me now is when I've got my green egg out and I cook a steak perfectly. That's success. When it's absolutely perfect to the absolute second, that's success to me. If I beat my mates in the golf course, that's success. But to be honest, nothing's going to replace the feeling of success when I was in my snooker career, and that's everything else goes by the wayside because I'll never replicate that. But yeah, I'm probably cooking is probably as focused as I'll ever be, as close as I'll ever get to when I used to practice and play snooker with the effort I put into it.
Rather poignant from World Championships down to steak, but there it is. Unless you were going to say the same.
I just wanted to know, you mentioned just briefly, very, very quickly, you said about how special and how it's for the purist, the Crucible. Is that something that it should, your opinion, Stephen, that it should stay in Sheffield rather than it go into a Saudi Arabia or wherever else?
China.
Yeah, I think it should stay at the Crucible, but because you never, you know, I think it's inevitable it will move, and there was talk about it. Barry's getting closer to having an agreement with the Sheffield Council whether they're going to together try and build a venue, purpose-built venue as close to the Crucible as, you know, with maybe obviously more capacity. Staying in Sheffield, I think, is important as well because Sheffield has just become, you know, a snooker city. And for those 3 weeks in April, it's just everywhere you look, and the people are buzzing about it. So I think even if it just stays in Sheffield, even if it's not the Crucible, I would hate to see it in Saudi Arabia or China, especially Saudi Arabia, and for the reason that when I've watched the couple of tournaments that's been on there, it just looks like there's no atmosphere in the arena. And if any of you guys, I don't know if you've ever been to the Crucible for the snooker or you go, I mean, it's just electric. It's absolutely electric, and people that go there for the first time can't believe the atmosphere when they go in the arena.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of sometimes the best stadia, like at football, are the tightest ones when the spectators are close to the pitch and you kind of feel it, you hear everything, and that intensity is difficult to recreate in kind of large, shiny stadium. I mean, like as a Spurs fan, when you go to Tottenham, it's magnificent, but it kind of loses something of the old school a bit. Anyway, shall we round off with a few quick fire light questions?
Sure.
Good. All right. I will go first, and then Dan can do one. What's your most powerful memory?
God. It's weirder because I was looking the I always say when I look back at my career, I can remember the matches I've lost more because the sort of feeling of losing is far more intense than the feeling of winning, and I always find that I can remember bad things more than good things. But I don't know. I mean, a powerful memory for me. My last match at the Crucible, I lost 13-2, and that was the way out. And I thought, God, that's so embarrassing. What a way to go out! And that was pretty powerful.
I'll try and sort of fluff you back up a little bit, Stephen. My quick fire is going to be: what is your favourite of your 7 World Championships? Which one stands out?
First is a cliche because your ambition is the World Championship, and to win it was amazing because I became world number 1 by winning the semi-final, so I achieved both my ambitions in 90, and I'm still the youngest ever, so obviously that's special. But I don't remember what year it was, but I beat Jimmy a session early in the final, 18-5, and I won every match pretty convincingly. I played my best snooker throughout that whole title, so that's my favourite one. Even though 1 and 7, for the obvious reasons, they're incredible.
One more from me, and then I'll let Dan have the final word. Outside of cooking steaks on the egg, tell us something interesting about yourself most of us don't know.
If I've been on a night out heavy drinking, I like to eat crunchy nut cornflakes.
When you get home.
That's it beats the McDonald's. I say that I would have said a McDonald's doner kebab, but crunchy nut cornflakes is not something I'd have had you down for, Stephen. No.
People are pouring milk in, or are you just sort of downing straight from the carton?
Oh no, milk. Yeah. And if I've got a banana, sliced banana on top.
Ah, very nice.
And just to finish, Stephen, I know you've probably been to a few over the years, but if you could pick one sporting event to go to, whether it's a football World Cup final, Wimbledon, Monaco Grand Prix, what would it be? What would be the bucket list?
I think the Masters at Augusta has to be as a golf nut. I mean, as most people that play golf are, I'm obsessed with it. I mean, if I got to play it, it'd be incredible. But just to go and watch it, I think would be that's definitely a bucket list. It's never been the right time because it's always April. It's always World Championship sort of time. But obviously, and I'm still working at the World Championship, so it's still not a good time. But yeah, that would be a bucket list, definitely.
Well, I'm just about to finish up at the end of the season, and I think obviously being a rugby player, April is no good for us either. But I think that could well be on the cards for me next. I haven't told my wife yet, but I think that's on the cards.
Out of interest, Stephen, I mean, it's not unusual for sportsmen to be good and enthusiastic golfers, but why are you obsessed by it? And that's quite a strong word to use.
Yeah, I mean, the reason a lot of snooker players play golf is because traditionally we used to always get the summer off. The season would finish after the World Championship, and you wouldn't play again till August, September. Now it's more all year round. There's tournaments in China, there's tournaments everywhere. So yeah, got into golf sort of seriously, sort of early 20s, and now obviously I'm retired. I get to play a lot more, and obviously where I play, I'm very lucky to play where I play, and I'm just can't get enough of it. The PGA Championship is on in the background. I shall be glued to the seat for the weekend watching that as well. So yeah, just love it.
Nice. All right. Well, listen, on that note, Steve and Hendry, thank you very much for being with us.
You're very welcome. Enjoyed it.
Loved that episode, actually. And I know we say that a lot, but really enjoyed hearing from Steve. An extremely thoughtful, eloquent guy. What were your favourite bits, Dan?
Well, I know I sound like a bit of a broken record here, but like just being able to speak to 7-time, world champion in Stephen Hendry again. Like my childhood was watching Stephen Hendry,
likewise,
on the box, winning year after year, and I just think for me it was so fascinating to know that and to find out that he was supremely confident. And I think, like, if I compare, probably himself and Ronnie O'Sullivan, they are in the Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, Tiger Woods category of their sport, aren't they? And it's so interesting to know that he knew that he had a head start before he even put his cue down on the table. And I think that for me, that's quite rare that people openly admit that. But for me, it was kind of really, really cool to hear that, do you know what? Yeah, I was confident of winning. I was better than my opponent. I knew I was going to win, and I knew that the opponent probably didn't know and didn't think he could win.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's all relative. He said, there were times when I was winning just a couple of tournaments a year, which for most people would have been great. But regardless of the fact that he admits you can never recreate those amazing highs, he can only look back with immense satisfaction and fulfillment. He had a decade of peak, and that's very different. As he said, like most of these players, they go and win it once. It's very difficult to go on a run. But I don't know about you, but when we were watching all those finals, and mainly with Jimmy White losing, of course, I don't know about you, but we all desperately wanted Jimmy to do it. And of course, Stephen was like the sort of Sampras of tennis, sort of absolute focus. You couldn't see beyond. With Jimmy, sort of sweating, high emotion, and it was kind of extremely painful. Whereas Stephen, there was something just inevitable and robotic about it, and you kind of almost couldn't stand it.
Yeah. Also, as well, he just how much he hated losing, and he basically he didn't want to hang about while he was getting beat, and he thought, I'm not sticking about when I'm getting beat, and I know I'm pretty rubbish. I thought, in relative terms to what he was. So I thought that was so good. I'm really glad we got him on the pod, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get an invite to Sunningdale for a round of golf as well. So that's been very worthwhile.
I know you well enough by now. I know your tactics. Your management of our podcast is generally is freebie or golf related, but it's also funny to know, of course, that even the greats of sport like Stephen Hendry have the same trashy post night out habits like us mere mortals, diving into the crappy cereal box and having a few bowls before rolling into bed. Finally, everyone, make sure to subscribe to A Load of BS on Sport, and please leave us a review if you enjoyed the show wherever you listen to your podcast. So a big thank you from both of us.